first, live, local. This is First Alert Weather Extra.
Well, good evening. I'm Mark Nelson, Chief Meteorologist here at Fox 12. We want to welcome you to our First Alert Weather Extra streaming show. King tides, that's all the rage this week. They're happening out along the coastline. And our meteorologist, Payton Major, she chatted with a coastal shore specialist on how you can catch the best view. And get this, you can also help researchers study the local impacts of coastal erosion at the same time. Payton?
Hi, everyone. I'm meteorologist Payton Major. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Fox 12 Weather podcast, or maybe you're joining our new streaming show, First Alert Weather Extra, on our Fox 12 streaming apps. Either way, we're happy you're here. We've got a really fun thing to talk about. I have a special guest, Rhiannon Bezor. She is the coastal shore specialist at the Oregon Coastal Management Program and also the Oregon King Tide Project's co-lead. Thank you so much for joining me today, Rhiannon.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about all things king tide related.
Yes, this is such a fun topic for, I think, Pacific Northwesterners specifically, because we are lucky that we get king tides. We get something, a few times a year that we can enjoy. And I know people travel for just to see, but we can just, head a couple hours or hour to the coast and get a glimpse for ourselves. So do you want to tell me what the dates are this year for king tides?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first round of king tides is actually coming up this week. So that is on November 5th to the 7th. And then we have one in December on the 4th to the 6th. And in January, the last round will be the 1st to the 4th. So sometimes we have 4 rounds, but this year we're doing 3 rounds.
Okay, sounds good. And do those dates fluctuate pretty significantly year to year, or are they kind of around the same time?
They're generally all within the winter months, but sometimes they can be differing throughout those months. It really just depends on when the moon is full and the alignment of the planets, because that's really what's causing them.
Interesting. Okay, well, now let's get into it. I know you have a little presentation you want to show, because I think people may be wondering, what is a king tide, especially if you're new to the area?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just start off by saying that king tides is kind of what we call it in a non-scientific setting. So that's generally what it's referred to. But it is actually in scientific world called a perigean perigean spring tide. And so that's just a lot of fancy words for basically saying that it's when the Earth, moon, and sun are all in alignment, and the gravitational pull of the Earth and the moon and the sun, the sun and the moon all on the Earth's tides are the strongest, because the Earth is close to the sun and the moon is closest to the Earth. And so it creates an extra strong gravitational pull on the Earth's tides. So you get the highest high tides of the season or the year and the lowest low tides. And so we call these king tides, which is a term that was actually coined in Australia, because they are the highest, most grand tides of the year. And the King Tide project was actually started in Australia. So not only did they coin the term, but they also started the project. And it spread to New Zealand and other Pacific nations, just again referring to these highest high tides of the year. And why they are really important is that they actually give us a kind of a glimpse into the future of what sea level rise could look like for our coastal communities. Because essentially the highest high tides that we're seeing today could basically be just normal high tides of the future with sea level rise. And so areas that are already prone to flooding or to a lot of coastal erosion, those areas are going to be more prone to that under sea level rise in the future. So if we can document those effects now, it gives us a chance to kind of plan ahead and be better prepared for that in the future.
Yeah, and since obviously the date is this week, November 5th through 7th, we have the full beaver moon, if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure. And it's in perigee, right? It's close to the Earth, and so it's going to appear bigger as a supermoon.
Exactly, yeah. And so that's where that perigean spring tide comes from. And so because it is a full moon and it's happening tomorrow, so that's going to be some of the highest high tides that we'll see. And so these spring tides, perigean spring tides or king tides, generally are found on the either full moon or new moon.
Okay, got it. That makes sense, especially with the dates being about a month apart.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah, it works out with that lunar cycle. Okay, and how and when can we see these? Obviously, we talked about those dates. I'll repeat them: November 5th through 7th, 4th through 6th of December, and January 1 through 4th. But is there like specific spot in Oregon that is prime king tide viewing?
So that's a good question. And I'll start off by saying that anywhere along the coast, it's really important to remember that safety should be the most important and paramount thing when you're visiting the coast, not just even during king tides, but any time of the year. And so when you're viewing or taking photos of the king tides, it's really important to remember to be at a safe distance, either, high up on a cliff or far back from the waves in the ocean. And remember that, water and especially these high tides and sneaker waves move really fast and can be exceptionally dangerous. And so you want to make sure never to turn your back on the ocean, don't climb on any rocks or logs, and really be aware of sneaker waves and waves in general. And beyond that, really anywhere along the coast, you're going to see different types of impacts. So areas that are more low lying, like kind of in this picture here, you'll see impacts like a lot of flooding. And so you will see maybe parking lots or streets flooded. And areas that have, really steep cliffs, maybe you'll see a lot more erosion along the coastline, or you could see some of, if it's during a really big storm event too, that's when you'll see some of those really high waves that are crashing like at Depot Bay and, coming over the cliffside and over the road, and some of those really dramatic wave images that you see from king tides.
Yeah.
But it really just depends on where you are along the coast and what type of weather conditions are going on, because just because it's a high tide or king tide doesn't mean that you will have some of those dramatic effects. It really just depends on if there's a storm, if the surf is already big. Because we see king tides during winter, you're more likely to have some of those effects also coincide with king tides, but it's not always the case. A couple years ago, it was really sunny and, blue sky and very calm conditions during king tides. And so the impacts were a lot less than they were usually. And people were a little bit disappointed of like, hey, I thought we were going to see, flooding and big waves. So it really just depends on the weather and how high the high tides are during that time of year. Each month the tides are a little bit different too. So you want to make sure that you take a look at a tide table and, try to plan your visit during those peak high tides if you're interested in, seeing those maximum effects.
Yeah, we love the drama. We love seeing the big photos of the massive waves. What's like the tallest king tide picture or wave that you've ever seen?
Probably shore acres during storm events and during king tides. Some of the most dramatic wave pictures that we've had submitted are definitely from shore acres. Again, Depot Bay is also pretty dramatic too. If you get a shot of, all the people standing in line and the waves coming up over the road, it's pretty cool. If you're driving through during a king tide time too, sometimes your windshield will get wet. So those are kind of some of the more dramatic locations, I'd say.
Right. Just in case you love the drama as much as we do. I love it. Yeah. So that's obviously how you can see them in those specific dates. And again, remember to check in high tide. I really want to talk about the Oregon King Tides Project. I know you are co-lead of it. So what do you guys do, obviously, throughout the year? What's the purpose of the project?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the King Tides Project, again, started in Australia, and it's kind of spread across the world from there. So that started about 20 years ago. And in Oregon, the King Tides Project has been going every year for about 15 years now. And so each year during the King Tide season, we ask people to go to the coast, or, if you live on the coast or if you're visiting the coast, to make sure, again, that you're very at a safe distance, but taking photos of some of these impacts, whether it's coastal erosion or flooding or really, large waves coming up and impacting some of the infrastructure, and submit those photos to our King Tides Project website, which is www.oregonkingtides.net, which I'll have on the next slide as well too. And so that actually helps us document some of these impacts, and again gives us a really good glimpse into the future of how sea level rise might impact our coastal communities in the future. So we share these photos publicly. We also share them with coastal planners, with researchers, with other state agencies, so they can kind of get an idea of some of the impacts they're already seeing, maybe how to help mitigate those impacts now, and maybe plan for some projects or some, zoning or whatever the case may be that will help alleviate some of those stressors in the future too. So it gives us kind of a step ahead, I would say, for sea level rise along the Oregon coast.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, just like the photo on your screen here, obviously that could be a glimpse of what it may look like decades down the road, right? With all this sea level rise that we're already noticing across the world. And so you'd rather have more of the impacts than the actual wave itself. I mean, I'm envisioning the drama as we were talking about. You'd rather have almost the aftermath of it, you think?
Yeah, so we each season for the King Tides photo contest, we have different categories that we ask people to submit photos in. And in the past, we just had a waves category. But like you said, the waves themselves aren't actually part of the King Tides. That's just sometimes coincide with these high tides. And so now the category for that is waves plus coastal erosion. So
Okay.
not necessarily a wave offshore, but if it's a wave crashing against a cliff or up against, homes or dunes, then that actually, is impactful from king tides too. And so that type of thing we definitely want to see. We also have a category for bays and estuaries. The tides have a great influence on those as well too. And so during these peak high tides, we can see inundation into those areas too. So you'll even have flooding, inland as well as just right on the coast. And then we also have a category for coastal flooding. And our new one this year is actually for youth photographers. So if you're under 18 and you have permission from your parents or your family to submit photos, then you are eligible to win a prize under the project as well too. And all of the prizes are sponsored by the Oregon Coast Visitors Association as our partner. So we partner with them, and our main partner is Oregon Shores. And so they also are the co-lead of the project, but we also partner with Sea Grant, and our new partner is Surfrider as well too. So we try to do a lot of partnerships that can get the word out about safety and the impacts of king tides, and make sure that we can do a lot of education and outreach up and down the coast. And so it's a really collaborative project as well too.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love getting the youth involved because I think, especially nowadays, I do school visits and I'm always stunned about how much the youth knows. And I'm like, are you sure you really want me to teach you about weather? Because I think you're teaching me. No, they're just on it. And I think especially when it comes to a topic like sea level rise, where people are going, I kind of want to see what I can do to help this issue or see what the impacts will be maybe when I'm a little older. I think that's a big cool thing that they can start to contribute to with this research that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it these sea level rise impacts are going to impact them the most, right? And so if we can get their buy-in early and get them excited about like how to plan for this and how we can adapt and maybe mitigate some of these impacts, the better the chance that we have for the future. And so it's really exciting to see how much they know, like you said, and how much they want to know too.
Right. I know this project hasn't been super long, but still 15 years is impressive. But what have you seen a sea level rise may look like in Oregon?
Yeah, so I will show you some examples of pictures that people have submitted just to kind of get an idea of some of those impacts. So during an average high tide versus a king tide, some of these comparison shots can really be helpful. So you can see the entire street is flooded in this photo here. And including when you submit your photo, the date, the time, the tide height, and then maybe a description of the photograph is really helpful too, so that when we are looking at these under, a planning kind of lens, that is really helpful for us so that we can document like exactly where it is, what the impact is, and what those conditions are. So things like flooding definitely have increased in some areas. Seaside, the highway floods pretty frequently under storm conditions, and during king tides, it's even worse. So that has increased over time. Areas like fishing piers and, boat launch access points can definitely be impacted as well too. So, this picture on the right here, that walkway and stairs are pretty much inaccessible now due to that king tide flooding. And so you can also see with that much water in here too, that there's a lot more sediment in the water here. And that's, just again, from that impact from king tides. And so it's not just necessarily the amount of water, but also the water quality, how far that salt water is, intruding up into the bays and estuaries. So we can see an increase in that too. Again, just accessing a lot of these areas that have infrastructure right along the coast and are very vulnerable to these different impacts gives us an idea of just how vulnerable they'll be in the future. And I mean, you can see in this picture here on the right, it's a sunny day, but any of the infrastructure right on the water, if you can imagine under sea level rise and during a storm, that could have a lot of impact on a lot of infrastructure up and down our coast.
Yeah, and obviously water is so powerful on its own, but when you start to get the sediment and the logs and whatever else it's carrying, obviously those impacts are more drastic.
Exactly. And on this picture over here on the left, you can see too, it can cut people off from different communities. So that can impact, getting to work, getting to medical access. There's a lot of different, human elements that are impacted, as well as the ecosystem and the landforms too. And that middle picture here is from Depot Bay, one of those very dramatic shots that I was referring to.
Yes, perfect. Awesome. And yeah, I see the stairs are covered too in that right photo. So, and you mentioned this may just be a glimpse of our new normal, which definitely concerning when we're talking about things that probably people just don't expect would ever be underwater, or an inconvenience. Maybe you're driving on that road home or driving to see your parents, grandparents, and all of a sudden you can't go anymore. That's going to create some very drastic impacts. Obviously, it's a slow process, but it is happening before our eyes. That is something that we have to kind of pay attention to.
Absolutely.
Do you see those impacts happening? Like, do you have a timeline? Do you think in the next 50 years or so?
So it really depends. Different sea level rise projections, sometimes have a timeline of 30 years, 50 years, 100 years, and they have increments of sea level rise with those years. Other projections are more focused on less on the actual time frame and more on the increments themselves. So saying, between 30 to 50 years, we might see this amount of sea level rise, because it is hard to tell. There are so many different factors that go into sea level rise projections and modeling. And so it's not that we don't know anything about it. We know how, what to expect, just not the exact precise amount. And so I think planning for maybe not the worst case scenario, but not the best case scenario either, and finding that middle ground of, okay, what will our communities look like in 30 to 50 years? And then if there's anything that we can do to help, bolster our communities against these impacts beyond that, great. But kind of that 30 to 50 year planning horizon, I think, is what most people are looking at in terms of infrastructure development, ways to kind of mitigate some of those impacts.
Yeah, and it's a hefty question, I think, on a lot of people's minds. It comes with the whole topic of climate change, and it's something we also battle with a lot. It's obviously we see the warming temperatures. We see that obviously warm air can hold more water, which can cause issues here too. So yeah, we understand. It's definitely something that you don't want to scare people with, but also you have to realize 30 to 50 years is not that far away.
Yeah.
And especially if you have kids, that's going to impact them probably more than you're even seeing today.
Yeah.
I could talk about this topic for hours, but I don't want to keep you too long. I do know you have a webinar coming up. Do you want to tell me about that?
Yeah, so Oregon Shores and Oregon Surfrider are hosting a webinar that I will be promoting the Oregon King Tides project on December 1st. And so you can register either Oregon Shores or on Surfrider's website. And we will also be, giving a glimpse into why king tides are important, how they relate to sea level rise, how you can submit your photos to the project and be eligible for the prizes, and most importantly, how you can view the king tides safely and make sure that you are not putting yourself or your loved ones in harm's way just to be able to see these, really exciting natural phenomena, but very dangerous at the same time too. And so really, giving people tips and tricks on how to be very safe when they're approaching the coast in general.
Yeah, I mean, we're so lucky again to be able to see it with our own eyes so close, but then it's a reality check because I know we've had a lot of sneaker wave threats recently, and I
Yeah.
see the videos, I see how it can carry a log like it's no one's business.
Yeah.
It's crazy how powerful water is, and it's hard to comprehend until it happens to you. So yeah, just really make sure you're following those safety tips, but also snap some photos and contribute to this amazing project. And I love what you guys are doing. I think this work will be so important, especially down the line when we can see the development of what's been happening over the years and the impacts that we're seeing just in the last few. So thank you so much, Rhiannon. Is there anything else I didn't ask that you wanted to add?
I'll just add the one last thing. So, I mean, it's also a really good chance for people to be able to participate in community science and, you know, help contribute to something bigger than themselves. And it's also just an exciting opportunity to, you know, have your photos go to use. I mean, we take so many photos every day, right? And we upload them, we get likes, and that's great. But giving them to the scientific community, I think, is a really cool way, and especially for youth as well too, to get them involved and like, hey, I'm being a coastal scientist right now. Like, I'm doing it. I'm helping document something really cool. And so I think it's a really cool opportunity for the public in general.
Definitely. I think people always ask, what can I do? And the thing is you can't stop sea level rise. I think there's just no stopping, let's say with climate change, there's no way we're not going to kind of get these impacts in some way. Now we can definitely help, you know, mitigate it. We can help maybe make it not as severe, but this can be the way. You know, it's something as simple as taking a photo, which you may already be doing anyway. So it's free. It's easy.
You might even win a prize.
You may even win a prize. How fun is that? Well, thank you so much, Rhiannon, for your time. And yeah, everybody get out, see the amazing king tides, and please contribute to that project. I think that would be awesome to see this year's photos. I'm sure you'll get some good ones, especially this week. I'm not sure when this will be posted, but we got an atmospheric river right around that time. So it won't be blue skies, that's for sure. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.